When you get to horseracepolitics.com, you should arrive on a page that looks like this. If you don't, that's a bit of a problem. I'm not going to go over this page because this is more or less an abridged version of the talk I'm going to give you now. But what you'll see at the top is this kind of focus on the Senate elections, which obviously is a bit of a giveaway in the title of this presentation. This iteration of horse race has been designed with the Senate elections in mind. So even like the color scheme, for example, this kind of pink is the exact same color used on the Senate website. So we branded specifically for this election. And the majority of the things that we're asking people to predict on the website are going to be Senate election specific. We do have a couple of wider things just to maintain some kind of wider interest, but the appeal of the site kind of for the next few months is centered predominantly around Welsh politics because it's a pretty seismic time. On the landing page is simply just an overview of what the website is about, similar to platforms like X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You do need to create an account to access the site. So this is all you're limited to before you create an account. But you can learn about what the site does, what features it has, who we are, including our partners at Focus Games, and then you're able to join and create an account. So I'm basically just going to talk through this whole process, and I'm hoping that this will only take about 20 minutes. When it comes to creating an account, you just need to provide us with your email. That's really the only thing that you, only kind of personal information that we ask for. This is because, obviously you might need to reset your password, but also because Horse Race will send people emails about new things to predict or when you've received some points. So it's a pretty useful feature, but you can turn all of that off if you want to. So I'll just log in on my account. And when you join when you come to the website for the first time, you'll be greeted with a dashboard style homepage. I'm only briefly going to cover the homepage because each section that you can see on the screen now is more or less like a microcosm of other pages on the site. But very briefly, this first column is your profile preview. So it just gives you an overview of what level you are, what are the highest trophies that you've managed to unlock, how have you performed recently, and a visual breakdown of your forecasting attributes, which I'll get to a little bit later with the profile page. In the middle, we have the races section, the latest races. So races are individual things that we're asking people to predict. So maybe another word for this might be markets, for example, but for us, using that kind of horse race terminology, we go for races. And this will rotate just to keep you abreast of what's available for you to predict, and also to see what people are saying as like a quick snapshot. But if you want to, you can switch to the race overview. And as time goes on, let me just make that a bit bigger. This graph will obviously populate. So at the start, it's not that useful because these races have only been live for a few days. So that's where the snapshot's a little bit more helpful. But I'll get to the races in a second. Underneath, we have the inside track, which is where our Horse Race Politics podcast sits, and our latest articles, which we're asking. It's kind of like a blog for the website. So as the election unfolds, we'll be hoping to have people pitching with their opinion pieces about how they think the election's going to go, just a central hub for a lot of our media output. If you haven't watched the Horse Race Politics podcast yet, I highly encourage you to do it. At least one of the hosts actually knows what they're talking about. On the right-hand column, we have daily tasks, daily quiz, and a community feed. And again, I'll get to the feed in a bit. So I think it's pretty important before I get to the rest of the site to just address the kind of gamification aspect of the site. Gamification is something that Matt turned me towards during my master's degree in terms of, is there a way that we can make forecasting or, not necessarily gambling, but prediction a more accessible and user-friendly experience, something that doesn't quite have the financial risks that come with political gambling, for example. So for those who are unaware, gamification is simply taking gaming elements, things like points, leaderboards, trophies, etc., and applying those to non-gaming contexts. So this is what we've done with forecasting. The whole general process here is that you submit forecasts on races and you'll get points. They'll determine your placement on a leaderboard, and you can earn trophies for doing various things around the site. that's more or less it, and that's kind of the general rule that's kind of permeated through all of the design choices on the site. So the races page, this is like the main attraction, if you will. So I'm just going to focus on one for now. I'm going to focus on the Gorton and Denton by-election. So this is happening at the end of the month, a very pivotal by-election in terms of what it says about the fading Labour Conservative duopoly and the surge of the kind of prog left, like Greens versus Reform. So if I just close this arrow on the left, so you get a bit of a wider view, and I'm also just going to hide all of the data, and then we'll layer things on as I go through it. So this is an individual race, okay? It has a category, which in this case is election outcome, and you've got some meta level information about when the deadline is. So this kind of ends at the end of next week. How many forecasts have been submitted by how many people? And on this first row is your kind of forecast submission area. And all you're doing is using these sliders to allocate 100% across however many outcomes there are. There'll be at least 2 and at most 4. So this is kind of one of the bigger ones because we've got 4 outcomes. We've got Hannah Spencer for the Greens, Matthew Goodwin for Reform, and we've got Labour and other as the kind of the 2 final options. So with these graph customization options, I can quickly see what the rest of the horse race politics user base thinks is going to happen by just clicking show averages. And I get these kind of dotted lines that show me that on average, people are putting Hannah Spencer at about a 72% chance of winning, Matt Goodwin at 19%. If you know of prediction markets, places like Polymarket and Kalshi, this is coincidentally more or less exactly what they're saying as well. However, you as an individual are the most important part of this website, and I can clearly see my forecasts in a slightly kind of thicker, more solid line, and I can see that I'm kind of a little bit more confident that Hannah Spencer is going to win. I have her at about 80%, and for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to put her up to, let's put her up to 83%, and let's go, we'll say 85%. So I'm just going to update my prediction, and as you can see, the solid lines have kind of ticked up just a little bit for Hannah Spencer and gone down a bit for Matt Goodwin. You are able to update your prediction as many times as you like before the deadline, I should say, and we encourage you to do so. Every single prediction that you submit will count towards your final score between 0 and 100. If you want to get like some slightly different aggregate level information about how the race is going, we have this row here. The leaderboard leaders shows you very quickly, if I just zoom in on that, the users at the top of our leaderboard, which I'll show you shortly, what are they saying? So you can very quickly kind of ascertain, okay, the people who are most active on the site or the best forecasters, what are they saying? On the right, we have the state of the race, which is more or less just where does the race stand now, okay? And I can also see where I stand in comparison to everyone else. On average, people put Hannah Spencer at 72%. I'm at 85%. I'm much more confident that she's going to win. However, if I'm wrong, I'm going to be punished a lot more than everybody else. Another row down, I can see my own forecast history here, so I can just see how my predictions have evolved over time. And then at the bottom, we have a discussion section that allows you to talk with other users about this particular race. So I think perhaps more pertinently for this presentation, we can have a look at some of the others, such as which party is going to win the most seats. As you can see, if we go down here to the state of the race, people are backing Plaid Cymru at 66% chance to win the most seats, Reform on 24%, Labour on 7%, and tie/other, which encompasses basically every other outcome, at 3%. However, I'm a bit more bullish on Plaid until I saw that poll from More in Common yesterday, which had me rethinking things a little bit. But this is obviously kind of the main race that people are going to be paying attention to as the election unfolds. And the election itself is in just, well, 78 days. So we're really starting to get into an exciting time in Welsh politics. But that's racing, okay? So each individual thing will give you, each individual race will give you a score from 0 to 100. If you go onto the site right now, you will probably see this new races section, this bit in green on the left. We'll probably have something like 5 to 10 races in there for you to get started with. So there's a lot to get dug into. And we can already see that like the numbers on some of these, we've got 23 predictions on this defection one, 32 as to whether or not Keir Starmer is going to still be prime minister at the end of the month. And you will, as I said, you will score from 0 to 100 on each one. I'm not going to get into how that scoring exactly works. When a race reaches its deadline, there will be a section of this page which will explain the scoring process. But the long and short of it is that you just want to allocate as large a percentage as possible on the left to the correct outcome as early as possible, which is effectively the central tenet of good forecasting: get it right and get it right early. Okay. So in terms of other components, the kind of more social aspect of the site, we have a leaderboard where you can see, first of all, you can see yourself at the top. So it doesn't matter where you are on the leaderboard. You can very quickly see your own stats. We have a little podium on the right. And then our leaderboard, which definitely hasn't had any visual design choices stolen from BBC Sport, available for you to peruse. So as you can see, we're up to 20 people. So as I've been talking, a few people have already signed up today, which is amazing. And you can sort this leaderboard alphabetically. You can sort it by how many horse race points people have earned from general site activity, their average score so far. So I'm currently winning. I'm amazing. Even though I got 31 out of 100, don't ask why. Just a way to kind of add a bit more of a competitive edge, but also social at the same time. We have a community page. Oh my goodness, Matthew Wall talking about me, which is, again, definitely not ripped off from any other mainstream social media site. But you can also filter it down to just the users that you follow. So just the people that you're kind of most interested in. But this is a place where you can come and like posts, and you can comment basically what you would expect to see from a social media feed. But again, another place for you to discuss things. As you can see here, you can share links to other things like BBC News, whatever you want to do. Just don't take the mickey. The inside track, I kind of explained this on the homepage. This is just where we're kind of housing our media outputs. So the newest episode of the Horse Race Politics podcast will always be available here. And we have articles, which at the moment, I think is only a couple of people, such as myself and Matt. But as the election unfolds, we hope to kind of add this article writing feature to more people so that we can get a more diverse range of opinions in terms of what people think is either going to happen about the Senate elections in May, or maybe there's some discussion of the by-election in Gorton and Denton that people want to talk about, this type of stuff. Okay, so at the moment, there's only one article on there at the moment, which is just me explaining how horse race works. So if you need a quick reminder, feel free to visit that. We do have a feedback page. So if you have any issues or any feedback on the site, please feel free to use this, and we will be able to potentially implement changes or fixes. Given that we're kind of officially somewhat launching today / later this week, we do expect that there probably will be an issue or two. So it's very important, and we're very appreciative if people can give us feedback. That'd be great. There is an admin page, but I'm not going to show you that because that's just for me. The last kind of major section to show you is the profile page. So here we wanted to provide a really kind of holistic and comprehensive overview of not only you as just like a user of horse race politics, but you as a forecaster, right? Other sites in this space, again, I'm going to refer to prediction markets, kind of like Polymarket, Kalshi, even something like Metaculus, that's quite a niche one. They are very results orientated places. Obviously, the betting markets, really all you care about is whether you're making money or you're losing money. So I should put a disclaimer now, actually, that there's no money in horse race politics at all. There's no fees, there's no gambling, there's nothing at all. It's all points, it's all trophies, etc. However, one of the things that I really wanted to do with this iteration of horse race is develop an idea that we started with in the previous iteration, which is providing people with kind of subjective feedback, not only based on how they performed, but what they did specifically in an individual race. Okay, so it's one thing for me to give feedback and say, okay, you scored 80 out of 100, that's great, but what were the particular forecasting behaviors that you exhibited that led you to get that score? And is there a way that we can make this feedback extremely individualized and a bit more niche and specific to you? The end result of that was the production, I should say, of these 5 attributes: performance, confidence, frequency, timeliness, and reactivity. Each of these captures a different aspect of your behavior from race to race. So you will receive a score for each of these attributes on every race. On your profile page is just the average of all of those scores. So I've only received scores from 1 race at the moment, and I did particularly badly. I got 31 out of 100. So my performance attribute scores quite low. As it says here, I show promise, but need to focus on improving forecast quality. Confidence is how close you are to allocating 100% to a given outcome. So somebody who says if the race is just has 2 outcomes, yes and no, somebody who says 99% to yes is going to have a much higher confidence score than someone who says 60% to yes. Okay. Frequency captures how often you update your predictions, if at all. Timeliness is how early did you join the race. So if a race was live from January to May, somebody who submits their first prediction in January is going to have a much higher score than somebody who joined in March, right? Reactivity then measures, okay, if you did update your predictions, you submitted at least 2 forecasts, on average, how big were the swings that you were doing, right? So if you went from 99% yes to 99% no, that's basically the biggest update that you could do, apart from going 100% yes to 100% no. So your reactivity score is going to be quite high. The trick, though, with all of these attributes, maybe performance aside, is that it's possible for you to score quite low on these attributes and still do well, right? I could absolutely nail my opening prediction and never change it and do really well, and vice versa. I could get something completely wrong. So what we have to do is we have to take all of these scores and then from these bottom 4 attributes, I should say, compare them to your performance. So how well did you do? And then we give you specific individualized feedback that can help you develop as a forecaster. And we culminate this with these personas, which you can see in this blue box on the left. So me, I'm the optimist, which is always a nice thing to hear somebody describe you as. Bold and steady, I enter early with strong convictions. I rarely update. My updates are minor refinements, but my performance suggests that my bold early calls need better initial analysis. So then what we also do is underneath provide people with a couple of sentences that explain how you can improve. So for me, horse race is suggesting that I maybe need to do a bit more research before I join the race. Or if I'm going to update, maybe update a little bit more often just to be more willing to course correct. I think we have something like 30 different forecast personas, which are all dependent on various permutations of these 5 attributes. So that's kind of like one of the major things that we really developed with this iteration of horse race, and I'm really excited to see how that kind of breaks down across our entire user base. These other tabs, we have a performance tab, so you can kind of just quickly see through a graph or through a table how you're performing, which races have you done best on, where did you rank out of all of the users. So we had a race on whether Morgan McSweeney would still be Keir Starmer's chief of staff. I got that one horribly wrong. I thought Keir Starmer was going to be a bit more of a ride or die with Morgan McSweeney, but the Mandelson saga was a bit too much, and I only scored 31 out of 100 on that race. In typical gamification fashion, though, we also have badges or trophies. So we have 3 different categories of trophies. These are at the top, we have competition. So this is based on how you perform on a given race. Activity, which just measures how much you do on horse race politics. And then a social category at the end, which is all about how you interact with other users. How many followers do you have? How many likes do your posts get, etc. All of the badges or trophies, I should say, are earnable for the first time by just doing them once, and you will get the bronze version of that trophy. Then simply to go to silver, to gold, to platinum, to diamond, you just do those things more and more, okay? So for example, on this ending one in the activity category, the racing brain, answer a daily quiz question correctly, I've got that one to the diamond level because I'm basically coming on here every day because I have nothing else to do with my life and answering questions. And it's very easy to kind of progress that one along. However, others, like these two grade ones at the top, in the money or perfect ride, are a lot harder to earn because you need to score quite high. So if somebody has like a gold or a platinum or a diamond version of those badges, you know that they're a really, really good forecaster. But what this does is when you're viewing other people's profiles is it gives you a quick snapshot of the type of horse race politics user that they are. Are they really good at forecasting? Are they really active around the site? And how much do they interact with other users, or how popular are they on the site? The last two tabs I can quickly skim over are just activity and posts. So I can very quickly see all of my posts to the community page, and I can see kind of some of the comments that I'm posting around the site as well. The site has Welsh translation, which is a very important thing to touch on here, mostly for headings around the site. So these kind of like tabs at the top are all translated. Things like dynamic content, for example, things that people post to the community feed, we can't quite translate, but for the most part, the kind of the main headings, ignoring your profile, let's just click away from that so you didn't see that, are all in have bilingual support. Probably the last thing just to touch on, as I said, we do ask for your email when you create an account so that we can give email notifications, but you can just turn these off if you don't want that. We do have avatars, so feel free to pick from our wide selection. Thanks to the designers at Focus Games for providing those to us. And I can also search other people's accounts. So let's have a look at Matt. Let's name and shame him. As you can see, he's got 3 followers. His forecast persona is the rookie. So whenever anyone joins Horse Race Politics, until you receive your first batch of scores from a race, you will also be the rookie, and then this will update based on how he behaved. The final thing to touch on then is what happens when a race reaches its deadline. So I'll use the kind of Gorton and Denton one as an example. When a race reaches its deadline, it enters into this kind of waiting for results phase where we kind of have to wait for the thing that you're predicting to actually happen so that we can say who was right. Okay, so this Gorton and Denton one would end, I think it will end on the day of the election, but then obviously we have to wait for the votes to be counted. When that happens, this page will update slightly, and there'll be several tabs for you to be able to examine that will really help you understand how you scored. Okay, so there will be a leaderboard for the individual race, so you can see how you did just for that individual one. There'll also be a breakdown of your race-specific attributes. So these attributes that we had on the profile page, you will get individual scores for that specific race. So you can see maybe that might differ from how you usually behave. And then there'll be a step-by-step explanation of how you got your score from 0 to 100. So that's quite granular, and it probably would take me another 10 minutes to go through it now, so I'm not going to because it's a bit math-y. But all of it will be explained. So you have a kind of holistic experience where you can kind of join a race from the start. You can use this information that we're providing to you completely open. There's no tiering to any of this. So it's not like a pro version where you get more data. This is everything. And then at the end, you get a very, very comprehensive explanation of how you scored from 0 to 100. What was it about your forecasting behaviors that led you to get that score? Maybe some suggestions on how to improve. And then you simply move on to the next race. How you perform on that race will determine where you are on our leaderboard. And then hopefully, when we get to May, we'll have a very full leaderboard, full of data, full of predictions. And hopefully our Horse Race Politics user base will have successfully called the Welsh Senedd elections. But no pressure to you guys. And that's more or less it. Effectively, the ask of this presentation is just to say, feel free to join. Feel free to come to horseracepolitics.com, sign up, create your account, and get predicting. And feel free to share this with whoever you want. So I'm sure this can go out to students. If you have a week of teaching that you want to fill, feel free to direct them to Horse Race Politics. And it's now just kind of out there. And the kind of exciting part of this is that exciting and daunting is that previously this has kind of been limited to, samples for a study or to an individual cohort of students. We've not really done like a proper kind of public launch. We've got some media partners for our podcasts. There's going to be a bit of marketing spend on this. So we're kind of envisaging now, like, this is the calm before the storm. And we're really excited for this to kind of be out there in the Wizard network. And hope to see you all on Horse Race. Thank you, everybody.